So we're about a year into this pandemic, and we talked about music, about local music to be exact, probably about a year ago. And it was a great little album released from a local guy that I'm sure you all know well, Michael Shatte at Conundrum. And I said to myself, we should bring him back, but we should also bring somebody else back that knows a lot about local music. And I'm happy to have them both here, Mr. Michael Shatte and Jay Smith from the mighty 99.1 CKXS. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today.
Hi, guys.
Thanks, Eric. Hi, Jay.
We got a full group here, and I always got to start this off. And Michael, you're well aware of it. How have you guys been doing in these very interesting times in our entire world?
Well, thanks for asking. I'm doing well, I think. Still making music at home in my studio. I'm, still somewhat gainfully employed, which is more than many musicians, I'm afraid, can say at the moment due to the decimation of the industry so far. But yeah, everything is great over here, as good as can be expected under the circumstances. I continue to feel quite fortunate for my scenario, and fingers crossed. Hopefully, societally, we can move beyond this in the not too distant future.
So let's fly it over to Jay. This is the first time I think I've asked you this question since I've started doing these little interviews.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? It's like Michael said, I'm fortunate. I feel very lucky. I'm doing good, and I know a lot of folks out there have not been quite so well. I think the mental aspect of this has been the real conundrum, to steal a word. I think Michael kind of summed up this entire year and change with his new title of the album there. This has been a conundrum for all of us, and I think we are being very tested socially, societally, as Michael said, and comes down to that good old-fashioned be a good person, be good to each other. And I think a lot of us are losing touch with this. On my radio show, I go back all the time to the way we all acted in the beginning. And I know there was some scare there, some fear. We didn't know what was happening, but we all cared about each other. We were all checking in on each other. And I think we lost that along the way. Some of us, it seems like a lot of us, maybe it's just the social media universe we get lost in, but I think we all need to do a better job of being good to each other, and that might solve a lot of our problems along the way. But yeah, I'm lucky. I've got a great employer who has been more than flexible through this. With young kids, that has been probably the real test for me as a father, and trying to get them through this and worry about them. The schooling issues that have popped up along the way. Online schooling is no fun with 2 6-year-olds in grade 1. I'll just throw that out there. And I'm looking forward to some form of normalcy. The new normal isn't what I'm looking for. It's back to normal when we can do so safely.
We haven't heard a guitar strummed in a bar. We haven't heard a snare drum. We haven't heard a drum solo with our own ears in any type of venue. And the reason why I brought both of you together is because you both have seen different paths as we've gone through these times. Again, Michael, last time we chatted, Conundrum was just being released, and it did really well. And Jay, you got a new little local spotlight series that you talked to some of our local artists, creating music, and we're still pushing on. What have both of you seen as we continued? Let's start with you, Michael. You released the album. What's been going on kind of from the artist point of view?
Yes, well, I'd be lying if I said I thought 2020 and 2021 was a great period to release a new album, because it's been rather odd. I mean, it's been enjoyable in the one sense to experiment with solely online promotion of my new album, Conundrum. Thanks for mentioning it. And because I'm my audience is the demographically maybe a little older, say 40 and up, that enjoys Celtic rock, blues music. A lot of those people expect to come be able to see me play live and hear the music live, and of course that's been entirely eliminated in the last year, or almost entirely for me. And so it's been difficult to promote the album, because normally it would. People would hear the music live and then seek it out on the internet. Now it's put it out on the internet and try to get them to stay on the internet long enough to listen to it and want to listen to the whole album. Of course, we live in the age of streamed music and endless playlists that hopscotch from one artist to the next. So to actually expect all 15 songs on this CD to get heard in one sitting as I would expect if perhaps if somebody bought the CD and threw it in their car, assuming they still have a CD player. To expect that to occur on the internet, I think, is maybe wishful thinking. So it's been a very different promotional process for me. I've enjoyed elements of it. I've had to, up my game in terms of where I offer the album digitally. And I'm always a bit behind the times anyway. I have a bit of an analog heart. So I'm trying to modernize my approach and get the music out there as far afield as possible. However, Eric, I will say this: I've been on the receiving end of, at this point, I think we're well over a dozen, and we're approaching 24 international reviews for Conundrum from countries like Spain, Italy, France, Britain, I believe, and elsewhere in throughout North America. So I've been really encouraged by the increase in sort of online review activity, and I'm talking about sort of published reviews online from official music outlets that are active on the internet. So that's been wonderful, and I might not have expected that in the non-COVID era. I probably would have had less activity by way of official reviews.
Well, I've got to give Michael some love as well. I mean, this guy, he's internationally renowned and respected at what he does. And sometimes we don't appreciate what's in our own backyard or what comes from our own backyard. So it's incredible that this guy is from Chatham-Kent and he still wears that on his sleeve. I mean, the talent, you just got to look at one of the albums. I've got his discography pulled up here online. I think my first album I had of his was Hard Ticket back before 99.1 was ever a thing. And I've always looked forward to each album since. The latest is absolutely tremendous. So we need to celebrate these things. And I think that's what this has been like for me on the flip side, is trying to remind us to celebrate what's going on in our backyard, the talent that's here, because it's never ending right now. I find that locally, the music scene has been cyclical, as most things are. Since we started the station here in 2009 and kicked off this local spotlight feature, we've experienced that. It was like a system of bands coming together. They'd work the scene, but most of the time they were teenagers. They were high school kids, that old school rock band in dad's garage type thing. And some would disperse and fade away. And then, the tricklers would stick around and do their thing. But right now, I feel like we're about to see a bunch more. My spotlight is booked right now for about 4 months. I haven't had that since the early goings of the station almost 12 years ago now. But what I am seeing overall, locally and on the independent music scene, when I talk to artists like Michael and we talk about this weird year, they're not throwing excuses out there. They could use this to, go off in the corner. They could throw in the towel, and everyone would certainly understand that. But musicians, for the most part, are pretty creative and artistic beasts, kind of wonky, kind of crazy sometimes, but they're utilizing that creativity. And I think that's what this has been about for musicians and for all of us. We've had to adapt, right? We've had to pivot. We've had to find a new way. And I find that musicians, for the most part, independent musicians, they aren't using this as a crutch. They aren't using this as an excuse. Again, they could, we'd all certainly understand, but they're using it to fuel their creativity, which is absolutely phenomenal to see. And at the same time, we have lost that live music. We've lost it here in studio. I mean, with the spotlight, normally every week there's someone in that fishbowl with me with a guitar singing to me. And I get to jam away and forget about the fact that I'm actually leveling the audio on that show. And I'm missing that. I mean, we've had one artist who's played live outside of our studio in essentially, a year and 2 months now. So personally, I'm missing that. Our local festivals are certainly being missed, and the artists are missing the opportunity to play at those. So I hope, and I challenge those out there in our community, that when we get back to normal, support these artists, support these events. It truly has never been more important to do that. So lots of love for those venues, those festivals, those bars that bring live music in. We need to get back to that. We need more of it. And when it comes, we need to support it on the other side.
Just kind of putting in kind of a guessing game. I did this with our mayor and our chief administration officer about when's everyone going to be vaccinated. But now the guessing game is, when are we going to be able to see amps plugged in and guitars tested and stages set for live music? So I'd love to hear both your guesses on this.
Well, firstly, thanks, Jay, for the kind words. I think that we'll be seeing. I think at the earliest possible opportunity, obviously, people are going to start playing live. Jay mentioned something earlier about a disconnection among people in this era. And I think part of that is the irony of screen fatigue and the fact that we have more access to one another now almost than we did before the pandemic through the screen. But it's somehow quite a bit less satisfying to communicate this way. And it's also, for me personally, exhausting. To be staring at the screen all the time, and especially if you're doing work online, as I'm doing right now when I'm not performing, it's very difficult. So I think that's going to generate a huge appetite for live music. Again, both among musicians who want to play it and listeners who want to hear it and experience it live in the room. And when will that happen? Well, I'm perennially a bit of a pessimist. I'm going to try to be an optimist here and say we might start seeing it by late fall of this year, but I actually don't suspect we'll see a major venue reopening until early next year, say first quarter. I hope I'm wrong about that. I hope it comes sooner, but I don't see it.
Okay. All right. Jay, what are your thoughts?
You know, realistically, actually, I think Michael's kind of hit this one on the head, but I'm going to take the optimistic side because I'm very pessimistic, much like Mike too. But I'm going to give you a very specific date. Live music will be back in Chatham-Kent on June the 5th.
Yep.
And that's because the Music for the Mind fundraiser says so. It's going to be different though, of course, right? And I think this summer is a fair answer for music to return, but, you know, COVID style, more of these drive-in type celebrations. The Music for the Mind Festival or Music for the Mind fundraiser will have a festival-like day in Tilbury at the Boonies on June the 5th, and that's a big fundraiser for the inpatient mental health unit at the CKHA. Shout out to Alicia Banks, who does so much good work there. So I thought she should get a plug here. Crime Stoppers have their drive-in Country Legends tour planned for this summer as well, July 15th. In Payne-Court. So I'm hoping those events get to go on as planned. I don't see why they wouldn't, barring any further restrictions, but you never know. Again, it's all planned in these drive-through and physically and social distant formats for this stuff. But that said, you know, 6 months ago, I would have said summer this year for sure. We're back to normal, although we may not be able to be, you know, right next to our buddy in the crowd. But I think Michael's right that fall and 2022 more so is more fair to have some normalcy, more realistic maybe is the proper word, to have some normalcy for some of these events. And the vaccination game seems to be what's dictating a lot of this stuff. We see Texas, we see Florida. Some of us get upset, we get angry, we get a little jealous of that. But the game is different there as far as the spread and the vaccination rates and whatnot as well. So when it all comes together, from what we are being told anyhow, then that's when things change. That's when things change, hopefully for the better. But again, events like those two I mentioned, June 5th in Tilbury, July 15th in Payne-Court, these are things for now that we should celebrate and support.
We're at that point where I like to take everything from negative energy and turn it into a positive, because we both have some great little, probably little things to talk about. Michael, you releasing a multitude of great albums, and a man, Mr. Jay Smith, who speaks to a local group of musicians who all have a passion to create music. What kind of good news stories do you guys have that you've seen in this past year?
Would you like me to answer first?
Whoever wants to go.
Keep the trend going, Michael.
Okay. So the best piece, not to be too narcissistic, but the best piece of good news in my life this year, it's actually been a somewhat momentous year for me. I got married last fall, and we're actually expecting a child in about a month's time.
Congratulations.
Yes, awesome.
Yeah, thank you. And as I like to say, if you can't procreate during a global pandemic, when can you?
Were you allowed to do that? Did they give you permission?
I don't know if that was against the regulations or not, but we made it happen, and we're delighted. So that's really good news, and I suppose that's been, I've been focused on that a lot when I'm not working on music and the other work I'm doing during COVID. But I am seeing I'm seeing positive trends. I teach students in a music program at Centennial College, and I've seen, teaching them on the internet. I've seen them really grow as musicians and as audio engineering students. Some of them really grow phenomenally in a year when we thought it might be compromised by the lack of in-person classes. So, and what I've also seen from them is a real energy and a real resilience in the face of this industry being decimated temporarily, a resilience to keep making music, keep planning ahead for the future, and to just stay positive about, when things bounce back. And they absolutely will. It's so easy to forget that when you're smack dab in the middle of the third wave here in Ontario. But so that's been very positive. Just seeing the good attitude on some of the younger musicians I know, and actually I've seen that with just about everybody. I've been very impressed that they're that the attitude is so good about this. And I've tried to keep my own similarly positive, even though as I say, it's not always easy for me to look on the bright side when it comes to the music business. But I'm optimistic.
All right, Jay, what's going on?
Congrats on the baby news, buddy. There's nothing bigger than that. So that's tremendous. I'm sure you're picking the guitar there near mama's belly once in a while already.
Quite right. Those family travel right through right in there.
That's awesome. Congratulations again. I think, looking back and reflecting on these unprecedented times, which none of us want to hear ever again, it's a reminder of what music and the arts is, right? Because it's an escape for many of us. It's therapy. Music is therapy for the creator, for the songwriter, for the multi-instrumentalist, for the insanely talented folks like Michael Shatte, and for the consumers like us. And it's been that way forever, whether we've realized it or not. And I think as we look at the mental health issues and stigmas and whatnot surrounding this past year and change, you realize the things that make you pause, that give you pause. We all realized early about the things that really matter, the balance of life versus work, family versus work, these sort of things. And then these things we've forgotten about, like just sitting back and listening to a full-length album, like Michael said. I've gotten really into that myself this past year. Instead of song by song, artist by artist, full albums. I mean, it just takes you back. But music as therapy overall has been a trend and a good one, I think, for many. We've seen what it does, for even folks with dementia and Alzheimer's in recent years. Music is therapy, and we all need a little therapy, or a lot, right now. We all literally 100% do. No stigma around it. And that escape is something that we need. And again, we've taken for granted locally and on that independent scene over the years. So as we continue to talk about getting back to normal and live music, I just want to repeat again, support those artists, support the Michael Shattes out there. And when we do get live music back, don't only just support it in the interim, because there's going to be a rush and appreciation at first when this world gets back to normal. Make it a long-term thing. I mean, these artists, there's so much good stuff going on around us, and we truly don't appreciate it. We take it for granted. I made a little short list here of some local artists who are doing huge things, more Michael Shattes in our world. Out of Windsor, not quite CK, but hop, skip, and a jump away, the Blue Stones out of Windsor are one of Canada's top rock acts right now. They're on the charts with every single. Just last week, they had 2 songs in the top 20 charts of the Canada Rock charts. 2 in the top 20. And by the way, they've just released a brand new single that will surely be there anytime soon. We've got our buddy Aaron Allen from Chatham-Kent. I know you've spoken to Aaron as well, Eric. CMA Award nominations coming out the wazoo. Last year's Rising Star Award winner, nominated this year for Male Artist and Record of the Year. We've got Brooke Nichols of Chatham, who had a Juno nomination last year. Doesn't get much bigger than that in Canada. From our Lambton area, we've got the Downriver Band, Aces High, 2 great local bands who are coming out of the woodwork with new music and are phenomenally talented. A local artist who I just came across a couple months ago from Wallaceburg, who just surprised all of us. Her name is Andrea Batter. She goes by Drea Batter, does some phenomenal covers, is working on original material, and in my estimation is way ahead of the curve on that original work. She just seems to get it. She understands it musically speaking, as an architect of her own music. So watch out for her. In Chatham, I call him one of our local MVPs musically. Jordan Ginty is just a guy who is really trying to keep local music on the scene, making it really a part of our daily lives, even through these times. And he's a guy who I compare to Michael in the form that he gets it. Not only is he writing, is he performing, he's a producer. He can take it from, you know, that origin of a lick or a lyric all the way through to having it ready for radio. And that's important. We're in a DIY world, and that is a big part of the music landscape these days for local artists, for independent artists. And Michael can speak to that. I mean, he takes his music from part A all the way to Z, essentially, and it comes out as professional as it does. It's mind-boggling to me, but that's how far we've come in the music world these days. There's lots to celebrate locally. That's the story. It's just up to us to celebrate it.
Yeah. So kind of wrapping up, is there any little piece of advice from a musician and a storyteller of these musicians that you can give to our bands and our musicians as we continue to push to the day where we can hear live music?
I would say just embrace music as therapy, as Jay put it. I like that idea. It is therapeutic. And, you know, I often surprise myself by how much I enjoy playing music still. If there's a period of a couple of days, let's say, where I haven't found time to pick up the instrument and then I pick it up again, I'm constantly surprised by just how much I enjoy it. And that is enough for me. You could set aside all of the promotion, all of the trying to get your career ahead, all of those things, and just really enjoy the music itself and the, you know, the meaning it brings to your life. And that would be my piece of advice is if you can, try to remember that and try to create the conditions for it personally whenever you can. I mean, I just feel unbelievably fortunate to be able to make music still, to have the luxury to record the music, even during the pandemic, and work on multiple albums simultaneously. But the music itself remains the greatest gift, if you will, that I think you know, I have access to. And yeah, I would just say remember the fundamental thing. It's the love of the music.
And Jay, I think you said a lot in your last little excerpt. Was there anything else you'd like to add?
One, take guitar lessons from Michael Shatte. And two, if you are a local musician and you have what you think is a finished product, a song or an album that stands any chance at getting on radio, even if it's just your little local radio station, register your music with SoCan. Do it for me, do it for yourself.
That's a great way. I can't think of a better way to wrap up this awesome little discussion that we had about local. And I appreciate everything you guys are doing and continue to do. And just keep on what you're doing, guys.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Eric.
Eric.